today we are going to take a look at setting up your Steinberg UR series audio interface, and specifically how to set it up with Cubase as well here. For PC and Mac it's going to be very similar, but I'm just going to demonstrate how you do it on PC, and from then on you can kind of get the gist of it. So the UR series is Steinberg and Yamaha's kind of coming together as one company and making a particular line of audio interfaces. So there's 4 kinds of interfaces. There's the 22, the 44, the 28M, and the 824. So I don't want to go into too many details of what these things or how these things differ, but what you need to know is there's four different models, and each model kind of does its own thing. So the 22 is the only one without the DSP functions. The 44 and the other two do have the DSP functions, and the 28M is going to be a different style than these three, which are mostly that sort of, they look like rack mountable things, but I think only this 824 is rack mountable because it's the specific size. So anyways, not to get all complicated here, but the DSP features are a crucial difference between some of these things. So I'm going to demonstrate how to set up the 22, and I'm also going to demonstrate how to set up the DSP stuff for the other 3 items, the other 3 models. So essentially, whatever interface you have, you go to their downloads page. So if you go to Steinberg, etc., there is, I think it's under support. Yes, and then downloads, and it brings you to this page, which I already had open. Then you would be selecting your downloads for hardware, because these are hardware devices. You choose the product. So you have between these 4 models here for the UR. Select what you have. In this case, I've chosen the 22 because that is what I have here in my studio. And then I also chose the 44 to also demonstrate you guys the difference between the 22 and the other 3. So what you do is you pick your platform, you download the appropriate driver. So for Mac, you have 1 driver that you can download and install. For Windows, you have 2 separate ones. One is going to be 32-bit and one is going to be 64-bit. So depending on which format of Windows, either 32 or 64, you would download the appropriate one. There's older versions, don't worry about that unless you have issues with these new versions. You can try old versions. But yeah, so it's a very small file, and what this is basically the driver itself and the very basic software that comes with it, and it's this little piece of software here. Super basic, nothing crazy going on. I'll get to that in a minute here. So for the 44, what you have is a much larger file, because that has all of the DSP functions within the software. There's a whole mixing setup software thing with some effects processing and all kinds of different things. That's why it's such a larger file. On top of that, you also have firmware for the hardware device itself, because the device all kind of built in it is where all of the DSP stuff is happening. So you have to update as their kind of firmware updates. You have to update the firmware in the hardware. So you would be downloading both this software for your platform, and then you would be also downloading the firmware. And then to install the firmware, you would have to have the device connected and just follow the instructions, and it would install the firmware, and then you're good to go. So yeah, so once you have installed these programs, either the 44 kind of more elaborate software thing here with the DSP function, or the UR22, which has the basic thing, then you're essentially good to go. So once you plug in your device, everything should be kind of hunky-dory. Now, because I only have the 22, whenever I'm connecting my 22 to my computer and I'm running this UR44 software or any of the other two ones with DSP functions, it's not recognizing any device that is appropriate. So this is all I can demonstrate. This is the GUI or whatever it's called, the software. So that's why I brought this picture up, so that you get kind of a better idea of what goes on in there. But I'll come back to this as well. So next up is you have to connect in some way in Cubase to your interface.